think, sometimes you would possibly say that I do free writing as a podcaster. Shannon, is our editor, and many an hour she's toiled to cut down what I've said and form it into cohesive sentences. It's been very, I'm very grateful.
I love it because it's true. Good morning, everyone. What a great day it is to be listening to the Pleasure of the Text podcast. A warm welcome from your host. We are Shannon and Gareth. Why is it a great day and why are we talking about the things that we have learned? It's because we have actually been podcasting the Pleasure of the Text for a full year now. So we have some lessons to impart upon the audience and lessons that we should still probably learn as well ourselves. But it's a collaborative space here, and we're going to be talking about all the things we have learned, the mistakes we've made, the triumphs and the achievements.
Yes, happy anniversary, Shannon. It's been a good year, hasn't it? We've done 30-something episodes.
36, I think, and we 36. Have removed one, so technically right. 35.
Okay. And new venue. You move around a lot, but I don't. So this would be quite alarming, I imagine, the absence of books and all their sonic properties.
Yeah,
I do feel like I'm in some sort of venerated chamber. And I suppose I am, actually. I'm in the music room. You can't go wrong in the music room. If things start to go bad, I'll pick up a ukulele and serenade our listeners, and we'll be all right.
You're very artistically talented, Gareth.
Oh, thank you. So, yes. So 1 year. It's very thrilling. And so what have you learned, Shannon? What would you say you've learned this year of podcasting?
Okay. Well, the way that we kind of designed today was we're going to talk about 3 topics each, so 6 topics. And we also wanted to make it related to how it streamlines into writing. How has creating the podcast, what are the lessons that we've taken on in terms of our writing as well? And the first one I suppose I want to talk about, and a lot of people are talking about at the moment, is artificial intelligence, so AI. And the way AI has helped me with the podcast is I do show notes at the end of the podcast. And so what I do when I'm editing, I'll write down all the people that we talk about, the authors, what books we've mentioned. I'll plug that straight into ChatGPT. And I'll give it a small prompt and say, hey, tell me everything about this author. Give me a summary of any awards that they've won, any contradictions that they had in their life, something interesting, a fun fact that people don't normally know. And ChatGPT will spit me out this amazing paragraph. It still isn't the way that I like it. So then I can go back and be like, hey, I wrote this. Can you frame it like that? So it's a pretty amazing tool. Highly recommend that people jump on the AI bandwagon. And how I've used that for writing as well, I've actually been working on a short novella called Grave Hearts. And it's about a lady who digs up graves and extracts human hearts. And so I will jump on ChatGPT and be like, okay, what tools would a surgeon use to cut open the ribs and extract a human heart? And it's incredibly useful. It even tells you how long you would have to complete a degree to be able to do that, to become a heart surgeon. So AI, big thumbs up from me. I don't know. I think recently didn't it take all Margaret Atwood's work and republish another book? Gareth, do you know that story?
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
I think a lot of people are up in arms about AI.
Well, yeah, I know there's the first AI novel was published a couple of weeks back, and what was it called? Oh, it was actually called, I think, The Death of an Author. Yeah, no, I think it was The Death of an Author, or The Death of the Author, which is a lovely little shout out to Roland Barthes, who we love on the Pleasure of the Text. And yeah, that was written by this fellow in collaboration with 3 chatbots. So they all work together because, writing is not a lonely pursuit. And this guy and his 3 chatbots wrote this book. I think basically they wrote bits and he went yay or nay, a little bit like James Patterson. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I think of this. One of the interesting things actually about chatbots and AI is that once the information goes in, you don't know where it's going to spit out. And so potentially chatbots can pick up information spat out by other chatbots. This is my understanding anyway. And so in a sense, whilst they're farming potentially accurate and useful data now, if people put in nonsense, it's hard to control where that nonsense goes, and the chatbots kind of basically begin to regurgitate it backwards and forwards, and that would be an interesting thing, because it would democratize information to the point where nothing would necessarily be true, which is in a way a reflection of our current times, I think. So yeah, massive echo chamber. So what I would take from that is, you want to always step outside your echo chamber. And I think that would probably lead rather neatly into reading books and watching podcasts, which was the first one that I wanted to mention. Obviously, with the Chat GPT, you want to be careful. At the moment, I would think it is relatively safe to look at other sources online, but more and more of those sources are being written by AI. And so essentially you do get this echo chamber effect. So I think, read books, because there's only been one published thus far by artificial intelligence. So I think it'd be a good time to read books. I think Chat GPT I found very helpful. It's like having a really smart friend. And I do wonder if in 20 years it'll be like having a really crazy friend full of conspiracy theories and such. But right now it's like having a really smart friend. And so you can kind of go, what about this? And it'll tell you stuff. And you'll think, I don't know about that. And you can have little arguments. And, it's great. And what I tend to do, though, after I've spoken to ChatGPT, is I will jump to the internet, which, again, I don't think is... much of the internet remains written by people. Double check it there, and then go even a further step back into the dusty room of books and pull out a book and have a look for further verification there. And I think that's in terms of podcasting, what I've sort of learned is it is important to listen to other podcasts and to watch podcasts on YouTube, etc. I've been doing a lot more of that lately. And I've been noticing things like everyone's really young and terrific. I was thinking, we're going to have to do something about me, Shannon, because I'm not young and terrific. And so I think it may be time to get some AI trickery in there to, alter these chops into something slightly more fetching. And also just looking at the way people talk and present themselves, particularly on the visual ones like this one. So yeah, I think you probably, I would imagine if someone's watching this now, they'd go, "Well, it doesn't seem like you've learned anything." But I feel that we are starting to learn a bit more about visual presentation and the importance of it. But I mean, when we started, we were thinking very much in just audio terms, weren't we?
Yeah, we were.
So, and what's that old saying? Got a great face for radio. I think that's how I was approaching it anyway. It's like, I've got a great face for radio. So looking at podcasts, I think, is really important. And obviously, in terms of being a writer, reading books, not necessarily the brand new Death of an Author, which apparently has been described as a very bad version of Dan Brown, which I don't even know what to do with that statement. But yes, so you don't want to read that book, but read the original, Death of the Author essay. That's a good one. But yeah, read books, read lots of books, I think, for writers. And podcasters, you've got to have influencers, you've got to have good influencers, and you've got to sort of immerse yourself in high quality instances of what you're trying to produce yourself. So I think that would be my number one thing I've learned this year.
And I'm going to try and segue because you said trying to produce this year. And I think aspiring writers, podcasters get stuck on this a lot. And it's that habit that we have of being perfect, that perfectionism aspect that we have. And, there's been, because I edit our podcast, actually, I'll quickly talk about the tools that I've been using. Premiere Pro by Adobe. It's $30 a month, but I love it. It's incredibly seamless to use. Highly recommend. We use Riverside to record. And the reason why we use Riverside is because what happens is it is downloading all the data and the video onto everyone's computer, and then it will upload it after that. So you never lose any footage or audio, even if we have technical issues. And I can see you've called yourself technical issues there today, Gareth. And then additionally, microphone. What microphone we're using? It's called Blue.
Yeah, it's a Blue Yeti X, I think. And yeah, it's been pretty good. But if we were going to be perfect, we would get. I don't think we'd use USB microphones at all. I think we'd probably use XLRs running through a board. And in my case, I could do that because, as you can see, I'm in the music room, and also in the music room, there's lots of microphones and preamps and various other bits and pieces. But I wouldn't want to make you look bad, Shannon. I wouldn't want to be here with all my kit and my vocal poppers and everything and just look, a bit fancy. So it's better to, if you can just plug in a Yeti and go, that's pretty amazing.
Well, I think that leans into that lesson, right, of good is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Good is just getting it out there, producing something rather than spending, I don't know how much a board would be or microphone you're talking about, but thousands of dollars. Essentially, all you need is, I think you get a $30 clip-on microphone, plug it into your auxiliary in your laptop, and you can go. And I think just working on the drafts, trying to figure out your voice, what you want to do is always going to be better than I need to have my vocals right. I need to have my microphone right. I need to have the lighting right. If you go down that rabbit hole, just as in your writing, you're never going to get anything done. You're never going to get anything on the page. Just go out and do it, because the likelihood is, and I don't really want to say this, but no one's watching you to begin with. No one's listening to you to begin with. And it's just over through time, when you develop yourself and your voice, that people will start plugging in and they won't even know about all the old stuff. Don't let the perfect get in the way of the good or the great. Just get out there and produce.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and it's very true with writing. I mean, that's one of the advantages of free writing, is that it just gets you to put words on the page, and that can be extremely liberating. Very good thing to do, free writing. It was actually Peter Elbow, who's sort of the modern proponent of free writing. So a little shout out to Peter. I believe he's still alive. He wrote his book in 1973. What's the name of the book, Gareth? I don't know. But look, it's a book by Peter Elbow, and it's about free writing. And check that one out, because, it's a really good example. I think, sometimes you would possibly say that I do free writing as a podcaster. Shannon, is our editor, and many an hour she's toiled to cut down what I've said and form it into cohesive sentences. It's been very, I'm very grateful.
I'm laughing because it's true.
I'm very, very grateful. I think that's very true. You want to get stuff down, and then, an editor will come along and fix it, potentially. Although, that person could be you, but you don't want to have your editor hat on too early in the process. And we don't script this, do we? I mean, people may be shocked to hear this, but none of this is really scripted. We have a 6-point guide on our screens, and that is it, man. We're winging it. Is there much? I don't know if there's anything
And
more to
that's
say about
important
that.
to know.
Oh, please.
No, I think there is, because when I am talking about don't let the perfect get in the way of producing something, if you are listening to other podcasts, I think if you listen to Seth Rogen or Stuff You Should Know, This American Show, what you won't know is that they have full-time jobs as podcasters. They have a whole team around them. They have editors. They have people who write a script for them. And so, I mean, it would be great to get to that level. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I want a professional job as a podcaster, but you know, free balling it like we are, that's our style, and we're going to continue doing that. So I suppose don't compare yourself, is what I'm saying, to those podcasts, because you have to realize it's not a solo job like writing isn't. There's a whole team around them doing that for it to look so seamless.
Yeah, speaking of seamless, I have another seamless segue now. I agree with you. You know, you don't want it to be like a full-time job, do you? And that's where my second point comes in very neatly, motivation. And I think, you know, in terms of this podcast, you know, we started it because we'd have great chats about writing. And I believe it was your lovely partner, Luke, who said, why aren't you recording these? And so we started doing that. And that, I think that's been a very successful formula for us. Like, you know, insofar as we've had success, you know, I think the success that we have had is that we have had some really good chats that have been recorded. Whether or not, you know, God, I look like I'm dead, don't I? So white. I have to fix the lighting. See, this is an example, folks, of what you have to do with a podcast and learning from your mistakes. But yeah, you know, we've had some really good conversations. Personally, when we went into the censorship space, I think we both felt a degree of responsibility to be very clear about what we were saying and have very, you know, particularly definite and tight views on that subject. And I don't know about you, Shannon, but I didn't enjoy that week very much, or those weeks. You know, that felt like a job, talking about the censorship. To me, it wasn't as fun as, say, this conversation, which feels much more off the cuff.
Yeah, I agree. It was a very stressful week, because especially during those 2 weeks, because I think we recorded 2 sessions. I think we were sitting down for at least 5 hours. But before those 5 hours of talking and recording and trying to put it in a way that was cohesive, we did a lot of research and we did a lot of talking to get our thoughts right, I suppose, how we wanted to talk about it. And so I suppose that general discussion that we normally have when we're sitting outside in the sun, just having a good time, that happened all before those sessions. As you said, it was, at least for me, it was really important to say in such a way that, because everyone gets really mad in this space, that they couldn't attack you on something that you let slip because you hadn't formed your thoughts properly. So that was really stressful. But I don't know how much of that stress is because of the way we thought people were going to take it, or how much stress we put on ourselves for those 2, essentially 3, actually. And I'll add them in so people can watch those podcasts, because I'm still very happy about the content we covered in those.
Yeah, and you should probably add a link to our first episode, just in terms of, you know, you were saying earlier, Shannon, people don't watch the early ones, don't worry about it. Well, I say no. I say let's get them watching the early ones, and really seeing how much we've improved. And then maybe commenting and saying, you know, you're not as bad as you were back in episode 1. I can see that now. Although God knows, man, you look like you're dead. So pale.
They might be shocked because you'll be bearded.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? I know. Still, I was thinking, you know, Movember's coming up, and I was thinking I'd grow a moustache for Movember to maybe get some people.
That's a good idea. I'll try growing one too.
Yeah, why not? Now is the time. And that's for cancer research, I believe, November. Should have probably checked that before getting online. These are one of the things you can learn.
Yeah, male cancer?
Oh, yeah, no, definitely male cancer. I think it might be prostate cancer specifically, but I'm not sure. But yeah, motivation. Motivation is important. Obviously, my motivation for doing Movember is mostly just to grow a moustache because I don't know what the cause is. But, and this applies to writing. I think writing on what's the word? I want to say contract. That makes it sound like an assassin. Writing to a brief is a great thing, particularly because usually if there's a brief, you're getting paid, which is lovely. But, writing, and actually I can fold in AI here. People are freaking out about AI writing books. And it's like, well, that's the end of people writing books. And I'm absolutely flummoxed by this concept because, an AI book might be very popular. I think it's, probably not likely anytime soon. But that doesn't stop anyone from actually writing books as well. Even if they believe that somehow AI books are going to be so perfect, so amazingly satisfying every single time that a human couldn't compete. One would imagine, I'm folding in more topics, that there could be a goodness to the human-made novel that a perfect AI novel might not capture. Sometimes imperfect things are actually more appealing than perfect things. I mean, there are unfinished albums like, I guess it's been finished now, but Smile by the Beach Boys. It had an allure because there were only parts of it that existed. The bits that were missing were part of its power. So, I think people need to remember this, that AI might write books, but you're also allowed to write books. They're not going to stop you. And motivation, you should be writing because you love writing, not because you're worried about who's going to read you. I think, when you're writing to a brief, that's a little bit different. But if you're writing for yourself, my opinion is the motivation should be the momentary, in the moment, mindful thing of the joy of writing. And I think likewise with this podcast, we're always at our best when we're just having fun and, shooting the shit. I was just trying to remember if we're allowed to swear. I still haven't learned that one. Shooting the shit, yes. That's right. Although you can have trouble on Apple, can't you? But, don't worry about that. Motivation. It should be pure motivation, I think. Write to write, podcast to podcast.
And how that relates to writing, I've just got a flicker of a thought. A lot of people in the writing space talk about pantsers versus planners. The methodology you've just talked about sounds very pantsy by the seam of your pants. Luckily, you've got the planner in me who comes in and is like, okay, let's create a schedule, because I don't know if I could be motivated as a writer if I don't have kind of a set schedule of when I'm going to write, when we're going to podcast, when I'm going to release the podcast, when I'm going to edit, when I'm going to do the show notes. So essentially, again, this is your life. You get to decide how you want to go about your podcast. But in terms of, and this might actually lead into your next topic, Gareth, if you want to create an audience of your podcast, I do recommend releasing content at regular intervals, because your audience or your tribe starts to trust that, and they start looking forward to a release date of your podcast. We have actually established our tribe, and that's actually one of my points. Find your tribe, whether that is with your writing or with podcasting, because we've had one of our good friends mention, hey, you haven't released your podcast on Friday. What's happening? Are you guys okay? And so it's really good to kind of establish that pattern or that schedule. We originally started doing podcasts every week, and now that we're developing other projects such as a publishing house and something that we're soon going to be talking about later, we've now moved it to every fortnight. Let's forget the sabbatical that I went on traveling around Australia, but it is good to keep consistency and to communicate and talk to your tribe, because I think everyone is so hungry to find connection in the world, whether that is online or in person. And, you're that connection for someone, so keep doing your stuff.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Although I'd probably put a slightly different spin on it. Um, connection is good. I mean, I like the connection. I like talking to people who either want to talk about the podcast or don't. And I think that's the way I would frame it. For me, I like. I mean, we've had some really good conversations with people who've listened to the podcast, but I wouldn't call them listeners. I'm just not geared that way. I won't use their first names either because it feels like not okay. But there's been a number that I've got to talk to a bit, either on video chat because we've got we've got listeners around the world, or otherwise, and I mean it's really satisfying. I mean it's lovely to meet new people, and it feels like the conversations that we have, Shannon, you and I. It's like other people sort of show up at the table with a coffee and go, "Oh, this is what I'm thinking." And I really like that. I like that a lot, and I agree that if you podcast irregularly, people don't know when you're going to show up at that cafe, I suppose, and they go off and do other things. But I kind of look at it perhaps naively as a sort of an expanding group of friends or friendly acquaintances. And yeah, that really appeals to me. And again, I know how naive this all sounds, babe in the woods. And so I'm bringing in my last topic perfectly, self-promotion. It may not be a surprise. Well, it certainly won't be a surprise to you, Shannon, but it may not be a surprise to anyone. I'm not very good at self-promotion. The extent of self-promotion that I've done on this podcast is I've done most of the thumbnails for the YouTube videos, which has been a lot of work.
And you did such an amazing job.
Yeah, I did my best. And that was fun. I don't know whether that actually got us a single extra viewer or listener, but it's always good to play with colors. Putting them up on social media.
Do you know what my dream is, Gary?
Yes.
I actually want to produce limited edition T-shirts for the pleasure of the text, and people can vote maybe out of 5 which thumbnail they want put on a T-shirt, because I think they are a masterpiece. Honestly, every single one I look forward to.
I must admit, the book clubs one I think would make a great T-shirt, where I'm sort of in place of Ian Fleming and you're the Queen of Hearts, I think, or Queen of Clubs? I can't remember.
And I enjoyed the romance one as well.
That is a classic. That was incredibly hard. It's very tricky getting a cartoon onto a photo and making it look at all like the two go together. But yeah, really, really good fun. But yeah, when it came to posting them up on Instagram, I've had to be sort of dragged kicking and screaming. And, I mean, I've got a Twitter account, and I think I put out a tweet and then they changed the name, and now I'm confused, so I don't want to touch it. And so, yeah, self-promotion for me in a podcasting space is not great. And indeed, in a writing space is not great either. I am not a natural self-promoter. But you sort of have to be in this day and age, don't you? Really. I mean, as a writer, publishers typically don't do much promotion. So if you're not doing it, who will be? And, I run a book club, and fairly regularly we'll have someone write to us and say, there's this great new book written by me. Do you guys want to buy copies and, do it for your book club? And obviously that's one way of doing it. I don't know what people do to promote their books. I think sometimes they stand outside bookshops and just sort of, with a microphone, they're like, get your books here,
throw them out the windows.
5 books, get your 6th free, and that sort of thing. Cardboard cutouts, or pretending to be a cardboard cutout in the window. I think probably there are promotional teams that you can hire. And I do tend to think that for me, if I really wanted to promote something I'd written, I would pay someone to do it properly. Because I think the gap between how it should be done and what I am currently capable of managing is too great, and I never quite get across that line. So I think I'd probably get someone, I'd pay someone who was very savvy or proper professional publicist to do some publicity and get that happening. We're not going to do that on this podcast. We're going to do it all ourselves, aren't we? And what do you reckon, what would you say, Shannon, would be the biggest thing that we could do coming into our second year in terms of self-promotion? What would you say we should be doing?
Probably I'm also going to learn more about social media, because obviously we have our Facebook group. Please come and join. We have Twitter. We also have Instagram. I have not got the courage yet to get onto TikTok. If anyone can convince me, I might, but it just seems so tedious. But self-promotion, I think over time, people are going to find us, and that's reality, right? Any big project that you're passionate about, they do estimate takes 3 to 5 years before anything happens. And that goes back to your motivation piece, Gareth, because if you're doing this for the money, for the audience, for anything like that, you're not going to be sticking around for that 3 to 5 years. If your motivation is pure, like with your writing, you are going to stick around and people are eventually going to find you. So that's the hope that I'm hanging on to. And, it's been happening. Our subscriber count has been growing with the very little self-promotion we have done, and just keep producing good content. That's all it takes.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's interesting too, actually. We got a whole bunch more subscribers when we took a few weeks off. What are they saying to us? It's almost like, it's like, we'll pay you to just stop doing stuff. I always thought that would be the dream as a busker. You'd get up there and start busking and people would be like slipping your hundreds, going, just go home. Just go home now. And then you could just, go to the pub and what's that? I think they call that failing upwards. Well, people get promoted out of harm's way.
I think it's to do with the algorithms, honestly, Gareth, because over a certain period of time, YouTube picks up, that's another thing. If you produce content regularly and you're getting a somewhat stream of people coming to see it, that's when YouTube will push your content up, so people will see it earlier than other people's. And I think while we were away, YouTube gave us a little bit of a lift up and showed our content to people. So sometimes it just takes time for your content to get picked up by all these social media platforms. Just
as an aside, has anyone ever realized that there's this opportunity to have like maybe I don't know, something sort of based around Google called the Al Gore rhythm, and you'd get Al Gore, past presidential candidate and champion of nature, you get Al Gore on there doing some like bongos, the Al Gore rhythm, and I just feel like, it feels like a gimme, really, doesn't it? Like, why has no one done this? Al Gore loves celebrity appearances. He's always popping up on things. You could totally convince that guy to get behind some bongos and create the Al Gore rhythm. And I could imagine people just, watching it. Maybe the Al Gore rhythm is like a 24-hour shopping network thing where he's promoting different things. Like the pleasure of the text. Boom, 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 boom. Am I mad? I don't know. It's very early in the morning still, so this could be a mad idea, but
maybe.
Yeah, you on board?
Talking about that, as a writer and a podcaster, when you think about it, you are a creative, you are an editor, you are a marketer, you are a distributor. You are all these things when you decide to choose a career in writing and podcasting. So, highly marketable on a resume if you ever decide to go back into the workforce. Why would you? But anyway, definitely pick up a career as a writer. It's the best thing in the world. And I think we've covered all our topics. And next fortnight, you're probably more on top of this than I am, Gareth, because the last fortnight we talked about traditional publishing versus self-publishing. And you wanted to talk about something opposite, as if we're doing a 180-degree flip. What are we talking about next
so
fortnight?
I came with up with the basic concept of self-suppression. Because I don't know what the antonym of publishing is. It's a weird one. I suppose it could be self-censoring, but that felt a bit too much like our censorship weeks, so I don't want to go back there. So self-suppression, the idea that writers do produce things. They take Shannon's advice and they go, you know what, good is better than perfect. So they write something and it gets published, and then they're like, oh no, I don't like this at all. This is terrible. And then they go on a quest to make it go away. And there are quite a few instances of writers who have done this. They've either wanted their work destroyed before it got published, or they've tried to destroy it after it's got published. It's very interesting, that drive in someone, a creative, to destroy what they've created. So that's going to be next fortnight's topic. I'm pretty excited about it, actually. It should be full of mayhem and flames and so forth. Yeah. And I think that's one to look forward to, actually, on the pleasure of the text. Like and subscribe. Hit the something.
I'm looking forward to it. Yes. Flash, like and subscribe. Amazing. And I'm so looking forward to next fortnight. And I'll see you guys all then on the pleasure of the text.